Hello and welcome to my show Indus Cuisine, and I'm your chef Basim Akhund, and we're back with a new episode from the heart of Pakistan. Today's recipe is very interesting. And what is today's recipe? We're making Kulfa Keema. Now you might be thinking that what does this mean? Kulfa is basically called porcelain in English, and it is basically this green leaf which we shall be cooking this beef mince with. It's a very interesting recipe, and this recipe has been enjoyed in the rural areas of Punjab for quite some time. This recipe is another take on the Palak Keema recipe. Now you might be thinking what Palak is. Palak basically means spinach. So this is also one of the forms of the greens which you find in Pakistan. The other one, which is very easily accessible but only during the harvest time of mustard, is basically called the mustard leaf. People also cook with the mustard leaf, and it's also known as sarson in the Pakistani language. And as you can see that the Urdu language, which is actually the national language of Pakistan, is very sweet, and it basically sounds like poetry. So what are the ingredients for today's recipe? They're very interesting. We'll be using 1 tomato, 2 onions. We'll be using 3 forms of green herbs, or 3 green leafy things in this recipe. We'll be using mint leaves, we'll be using coriander leaves, and we'll be using kulfa, which is called porcelain. Then you'll be using around 1 kilogram of beef mince. It needs to be 30% fat and 70% lean beef. It's a mixture. As you can see, there are some white pieces. That's the fat which we shall cook in this recipe, and which will give a nice flavor to it. Then we'll be needing around 1 cup of oil, some ginger, some garlic, some green chili, some coriander powder, some red chili powder. Then you shall be needing some turmeric powder, black pepper. We shall just crack it, and just some salt to taste. Now how will this recipe be cooked? So now first what you shall do is you shall just pick up all the green kulfa and keep it over here. Now what we shall do is we shall just chop it. We shall pass our knife through it as closely as we can. I've basically taken the lower part of the greens out, and these last sticks will not be used, and I shall throw them in the bin. Now this is done. Now what you need to do is you need to really finely chop this. Keep chopping it so that you get the best results, especially where you see the last part of the stem, which is a little thicker as compared to the other ones. So you have to go really close for this recipe. I'll just keep mixing it properly, fold it again, and then we shall just boil it for a bit. Now how long do you need to boil it for? I'll let you know, but for that it needs to be really nicely chopped. This is done. Now what I'll do is I'll pick up a wok. The wok is over here. I'll bring it and I'll keep it on heat. I'll increase the heat to full, and I shall add water into it. I'll not be adding a lot of water, so I'll just put 2 cups of water. And we shall just toss the kulfa in. Reduce the heat, place it in it. But remember, because I'm adding only 2 cups of water, so for this recipe I'll be also placing the lid on top so that it gets a partial steaming effect. The partial steaming effect will give it a very nice texture, and this will take the recipe a little upper in the flavor palette. Okay, now this is done. Now always remember, whenever you're boiling something, especially greens, you need to add salt. So I'll add half a teaspoon of salt, mix it up again, and now increase the heat to full and give it a lid. I'll keep it over here. I'll just rinse my hands, and then I'll let you know what to do next. So as you can see, I've put this on boil. I've shifted the stove, and I'm letting it boil for, let's say, 5 minutes. Once it comes to boil, then you shall count 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 minutes then. Now I'll pick up a wok. I'll bring it to the stove. And before that, as I told you, if I feel that there is a little bit of shine in anything I'm using, there's only water over here, I basically wipe it off. It is better to be careful than sorry, remember that. Okay, now once the wok comes to heat, I'll add some oil. But before that, we need some onions, and for this recipe, we'll be using 3 of these. We'll be using 3 of these, and we shall finely chop them. Okay, so just put it in half. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Slice it from between and just keep your knife super close. Now we're chopping for this recipe so that the onion doesn't come in your mouth much. As I've told you, every recipe is different. You need to treat all the ingredients, all the vegetables differently to get the best result. This is done. Chop it finely and smoothly. Keep the root on the side, always remember that. I'll throw it in the dustbin over here in front of you, and I shall now start with the second one. We shall also keep the root on. Why? Because if you keep the root on, the onion will not fall apart, and you need to remember that if the onion starts falling apart, the result of the recipe will be compromised. Finally chop it, and now throw this on the side. Now the last part of the second onion, remember I'm just making these cuts, and I'll be actually using only 2 because the other one is too small, and these ones are a little bigger than the medium size. So you need to improvise as you go. This is done. Throw this on the side, keep this onion and save it for later on. The pan has come to heat. I shall just transfer all the oil over here, and now I shall cook the onion till it's brown in color. Now reduce the heat a little bit, bring the temperature down, and transfer all of this over here. Slowly and gradually. And this is done. Now increase the heat to full and cook the onion. Mix it up. This onion will basically come down in size. Remember that. Why? Because onion holds a lot of water naturally. It's Mother Nature. I'll add half a teaspoon of salt. I'll spread it out so that the onion starts to sweat. Remember that. Mix it up nicely. Reduce the heat. And now give it a lid. Now I'll give it a lid and I'll let it cook for, let's say, 3 minutes on high heat. On the other hand, what I'll do for this recipe is I'll pick up some ginger. I shall just take half of it right now, and then I shall finely slice it. Go super close, super fine. And trust me, this will take you a very, very long way. This is done. Now pick up the lid, add the ginger, and let this cook. So properly mix it, and as you can see, today in Islamabad, it's a beautiful evening. It's not that late in the evening, it's 5:30. It's usually, you could say, partially sunny, but because there's some clouds outside, so it's a little dim today, and I hope you're enjoying the weather with me because I am also enjoying it. Okay, now we'll let this cook till it gets brown, and now if you see over here, this is properly cooked. The color has changed to dark green in front of you, and now what I'll do is I shall just drain the water out, and once I've drained the water out, then I shall just let it drip in the drainer, in the strainer. So once I'm done with this, then I'll show you the final result of the recipe. But there's a lot to be done right now. There are a lot of things that have to go into it before this goes in. So what I'll do now is I shall go for a short break, and once I'm back from the break, I'll let you know what to do. Keep watching Indus Cuisine, don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Indus Cuisine and I'm your chef Basim Akhund. During the break I just waited for you, and on the other hand I just drained all of this out. Now what I'll do is I'll basically take this and I'll press it down so that if there is any added water, it just goes away. I want it to be as dry as possible, and I want to squeeze out all the water so that gets the best result out of this recipe. There's quite some water that basically drained out. I'll let this sit over here and let it drip. So basically it's slowly and gradually dripping. And now as you can see over here, the onions have started browning also. Now what I'll do is I'll just give it another minute. Why? Because it just takes about a minute once they're translucent properly. It's a very quick transition, you could say. So I'm just moving it around. The more you move it, you will air them also, and they will get a chance to fry properly. Okay, now what do you need next? Now what I need is I need a tomato. What I'll do for this is I shall just take the eye of the tomato out, toss it in the bin, cut it into 4 halves, and then quarter the 4 halves even further. When this is done, I shall just add it to the pan. It goes in, or the wok which I'm cooking in, and I'll just let it fry on high heat. So till the time this is frying, what I'll also do is I shall just pick up a kitchen towel and I shall just dab it over here and clean it. Why? Because if you keep your station clean, then only you will go a long way in cooking. Remember that. Now as you can see, the edges are browning, so you always have to fold the edges in before the onions start to burn. Okay, now this is done. Now let it brown and let it keep browning. Okay, so we'll just pick up around 4 pieces of garlic, big garlics for this recipe. And as you can see now, the transition is very quick. I'll reduce the heat so that I do not burn it much. Okay, reduce the heat, smash the garlic, and keep going on and moving forward. This is done. Bring it close, and now finally chop it. Slowly and gradually, it will take you a long, long way. This is done. The garlic must be finely chopped. Pick it up and toss it in. As I told you, slowly and gradually you'll win if you do it properly. Now increase the heat again. I'm basically maintaining the heat in the pan and not overcooking it much. Push it forward. And now comes the time of truth, you could say. Now what I need is I need to add a few spices. What I'll do is I'll just pick up some black peppercorn. I'll place it over here. And I shall just start breaking it with a ramekin. Apply some pressure. It's not necessary that you break all of them. Just break a few pieces here and there so that the flavor is released. It's done. Pick it up. Transfer all these into the oil, because this is what the flavor is all about. You need to remember one thing, that black pepper goes best with beef. You could also say in the culinary world, they call black pepper the best friend of beef in terms of ingredients. Okay, now this is done. I am just mixing it slowly and gradually. So what's happening is that when I'm pouring hot oil, I'll show you one thing. The skin of the tomato comes out. I'll just pick it up, throw it in the bin, and I'll do this over and over again. This is the process for this recipe. You need to follow it, and then only you'll get the best result. Now I'll put the heat back on pilot. I'm basically slowly and gradually letting the onion brown. Okay, so now pick up some turmeric powder, pick up some red chili powder, and pick up the cumin powder. It goes in. Transfer all of it at the back. Why? Because you don't need it anymore. Start mixing it. I want all the spices to fry just for 30 seconds. That is it. Now we have color, now we have flavor, and now the next step is we need the meat. So I'll pick the meat up, I'll take the cling wrap off, and I'll transfer all of this into the wok over here. Place it here. Pick this up, put it at the back, rinse your hands, and then continue. Now you have to basically fry the meat in the oil. That's why I've added a cup of oil. You need to remember one thing, and also that the beef has 30% of fat, which is also considered as good fat as it comes from the animal. So now we shall just mix this and slowly start breaking it down on high heat. Why am I breaking it down? When the meat is together like this, when the mince, the oil won't basically go through it. If the oil doesn't go through it, you won't get the best flavor, the best result. So what I'll do is I shall keep folding it and frying it and beating it down. This is how you do it, and this is how you will get the best result. So now the heat is too high. I'll just reduce the heat to, let's say, medium. Push this on the side and now keep breaking it down. Slowly and gradually, it will take you a long way. That's all I keep telling you in our show. Why? Because that is how you can cook the best recipe. Now, keep beating it down till the time this isn't fried. I cannot put anything else, which means that this process is a little strenuous, but it will give the best result. As you can see, there is more bubbling towards the outer side. The reason behind that is because the temperature over here is colder and the temperature in the center is less hot. Why? Now the reason behind that is that the heat is basically towards the outer side, and also because the mince is more separated because of the heat, so it's allowing it to pass properly. So now if I mix it again, so the cold meat in the center will be mixed with the hot meat, and then the temperature will be balanced properly. As you can see, it's opening now. The meat must open properly because we are frying it. We are not adding water into it, so you have to basically keep beating it down on high heat. High heat is the way you can cook this recipe, and during this process, while I'm basically beating it down, I'm also mashing the tomatoes with this. Okay, now what I'll do is we need to add some salt. We've just added a little bit of salt in the dish, and the half teaspoon which I've added was in the greens. So add some salt. The salt will help in breaking down the beef mince. It will bring out the water, it will pull out the water, and as you will see, it will give a nice texture and taste to this beautiful recipe we're cooking today. So I'm just going to mix it, and see, as I mixed it, it's starting to lose its grip together. As you can see, it's frying on high heat. Keep mixing it and let the beef mince fry. As you can see, it's frying on high heat. What now I shall do is I shall just keep it on high heat and keep folding it after every 30 seconds. So till the time this is happening, what I'll do is I'll reduce the heat to medium because you do not want to burn it. And now I shall pick up some of the greens which I shall add in this recipe. So first I shall add some coriander. So for this recipe, I'll just take the greens, the leaves of the green over here, and I shall just twist it around like a cigar, wrap it up, roll it like this, bring it closer, and finally chop it. This needs to be chopped very nicely to get the perfect flavor for this recipe. Now this is done. What I'll do next is I shall just pick this up, toss it in the blender over here, but first we shall place the kulfa. The kulfa is, you could say, a green which is in Pakistan. Whatever is done, please take it on the side and throw it away. Now I shall just add a little bit of green coriander. It goes in over here, and try saucing everything from here. Pick it up, transfer it, and then just rinse your hands. I've increased the heat of the meat so that it cooks properly, and now what I'll do is I'll just pick up the bunch of mint leaves, toss the remaining over here, wrap it around, and just cut it once. Now I'll pick up all the mint, toss it in over here, pick up the water and just add a half cup. That is it. Not too much, because if you add too much, it will spoil the whole result. Give it a lid properly and now process it. As you can see, the greens are done. They've basically transformed into this nice paste which smells beautiful. Okay, now we shall reduce the heat over here, transfer all of this into this and sauce as much as we can. Let's not waste anything. Keep this at the back. Do not toss it in the, you could say, sink. Why? Because it ruins the whole jug. It can break it. And now because the board is too dirty, I shall keep it at the back and I shall clean it when I shall just start dishing everything out. I'll just pick up some tablecloth. I'll clean everything. Why? Because as you clean, you will learn discipline in the kitchen, and discipline takes you a very, very long way. Now we have chopped everything. Everything is done. This goes over here. I'll rinse my hands and then we shall mix it again. So now I've added all the green paste over here. The green paste had water. Now because the water in this will be mixed with all of the goodness over here, what will happen is that we will have to cook it again on high heat so that the beef mince starts to split. Mix it up slowly and gradually. That's all you require for this delicious recipe. We're basically frying all the mince with all the delicious things we have over here. The greens will give this recipe a nice green flavor. Scrape whatever is sticking to the bottom of the wok or the pan you're cooking in. Why? Because that is called the soup in the French language. That is all the flavor you need and you will not waste. This is done. Okay, now reduce the heat to medium and let this cook. Now we need some green chilies. I'll pick up around, you could say, 5 of these little ones. I'll just break them into half. This is how it's done locally, and add them over here. Why? Because they will release their flavor when they're fried nicely, and that is what I require. I will want the green chilies to be cooked in the traditional, most possible way of this recipe. Okay, now mix it up properly so that the green chilies gives it a nice, beautiful, luxurious flavor. Everything is done. The water from the greens has evaporated. I shall just start cleaning up in front of you over here, and we shall start getting ready for the final look of this beautiful, delicious recipe. So now I shall dish this out in another 2 minutes, and then I'll show you how it looks towards the end. Don't go anywhere. As you can see, today's recipe is ready. It was quick and easy, and I hope you liked it. It has a little bit of oil. Why? Because it was deep fried. I'll see you in another episode of Indus Cuisine. Take care of yourself, lovely people. Bye-bye.